Hello and welcome to what I am maybe going to call Alex's afternoon art show. Might be something else in the final product, who knows. But yeah, this is going to be a thing I'm maybe going to do every now and then. And so in this video we're going to do a simple enough Batman side profile. So I'll roll the intro now, I guess. Don't know why I'm giving myself instructions. I'm going to be the only one watching this thing anyway. So, now that we're actually into the thing itself, we've got Photoshop open in front of us. Most of this video is probably going to be the top of my head, I should warn you, as was with the art stream. Anyways, we'll have a brief jump cut, and then whenever we come back, there will be a base sketch. Alright, we're back, and I have done a base sketch. I've even thrown in some details there for myself, just to remind myself, because I'm not going to be showing my reference. This is just something I should probably say now, is that I tend to work from stock photos, and some of those companies can be a little litigious. So I'm just not going to bother even showing it. I put it in while I was working and then I deleted it afterwards. So yeah, we'll start kind of throwing in some details now. But the kind of the aim of the game here is simplicity. We don't want to get too bogged down in the details. And yeah, just to try and help me out, I have reference. I have reference open in front of me just to help me out, just to make my life a little bit easier. And yeah, as some artists might tell you, or as opposed to what some artists might tell you, reference is not evil. And hell, even working closely from a pose is not evil. It's perfectly fine, and you shouldn't be afraid to use a bit of reference every now and then. If you need help out, take some help. It's just, I suppose, a good lesson for life there. But yeah, I suppose it's just stubbornness in some senses that some people don't like using it. So the way I draw is typically kind of messy, but I try to kind of keep a degree of a handle on it so that it's just not completely nonsense. But yeah, we want to just kind of limit some of the excess, because we're going to be covering a lot of this stuff in shadow by the end anyways. Yeah, throw in some crease in here and there. Don't want to go overboard, we don't want it to look ancient. Even erase some of it. Yeah, we'll put in little anger lines and stuff like that, because of course Batman is a very angry man. Top of the lip. We want to at least get this kind of outward shape of the head kind of done early enough so that kind of helps to inform us later on. Got a bit too far on that. Yeah, we wanna give him like a bit of the heroic underbite, but we don't want to go too far with it, because otherwise you'll look a bit kind of weird. Again, the lip kind of area here always looks a bit strange until you actually get in to the lips themselves. Once you've actually put in the mouth, it tends to look a little better. But yeah, now you've got a bit of underbite going on. We don't want too much, as I say, because he'll look a bit strange if he's got a bit much going on there. Just gonna finish up the jawline here. Some of these details we're not going to use. This is just supposed to be the kind of the shape of the ear, but we're not actually going to use that, because on the Batsuit you rarely actually see these human ears. You only really see the top bat ears, and that's it. You don't really want to go too much with it, because then it'll look a bit strange. Look a bit strange whenever you overemphasize the ear. but we'll kind of put in a bit of a curve here, so at least it kind of leads over onto that. Put a little bit of that curve there. So at least, yeah, we get that kind of, we get the sense that he at least has human ears. We don't want to leave him just kind of lacking details, because then it will look kind of strange. But yeah, I should probably explain a little bit more about what the idea of the show is. So the kind of idea of this show, I suppose you'd call it, is that I'll be kind of doing these little drawings every now and then, and yeah, you'll see me show up every now and then. I'm not too sure what the kind of schedule of them would be. Maybe it'll be, I don't know, maybe every week, every couple of weeks, who knows? We'll see, I'll figure it out. But yeah, so the idea is that these are these kind of drawings that I can get done in maybe about an hour or so that I can cut them down, make a bit more of an edited type of video out of it. It's somewhere kind of in between the streams and also the yeah, somewhere between the streams and the speed art videos, because those are obviously, there's no real kind of interaction there with the speed art. It's just kind of, it's all very much the kind of just the drawing, and that's it really, and they're all very short. But this is somewhere kind of in between that, be a little longer, maybe about half an hour or so, be the kind of overall length, generally speaking. But yeah, generally not too much longer than that, I would reckon. A little bit of a cleft in the chin, giving the iconic chin cleft. Bit of that butt chin going on. But yeah, you shouldn't be afraid to erase things whenever you're drawing. I do feel the need to say that these videos are probably going to be very rambly, and will have almost no kind of recurring running themes or what have you, or really any kind of consistent topics that I'm talking about. Mainly just me talking really about nothing. But then again, that's really just how I talk. Is very rambly and all over the place. This is where I start taking a little bit more of a look at my reference, because the bat ears, that's where it gets a bit tricky. I'm gonna kind of start bringing them up here now. Does that look something alright? They used to be tall, but we don't want them to be gigantic, because they'll look a bit strange if they're too big. Put the curvature of the top of his head in as well, and then we can kind of assess this ear. That ear looks proper. Looks alright. Looks alright. Again, I hope my mumbling is not too hard to understand. And as I say, again, mostly just the top of my head you'll be seeing, mostly the hair covering my face. But not much I can really do about that currently. I do have to lean over this tablet because it does sit flat, unfortunately. It doesn't prop up like some other graphic tablets do, which is a bit of a pain. That ear's in the wrong position, it should be moved over more. Okay. Maybe it's a little too far over now. There's a balance to be struck, there's always a balance to be struck, and again, you should never be afraid to erase things. Because when you've made a mistake, there are mistakes. There are definitely mistakes that you can make, not just happy accidents. Those happen sometimes too, but it can be tricky to kind of salvage something sometimes. So if you're not feeling something, you should always not be afraid to get rid of it and start over. So let's see this from far out. Yeah, looks alright. Starting to come together a little bit more. Alright. Yeah, the way I tend to draw Batman's cow tends to be rather long. I tend to draw it quite long, and I've kept in this line here just that I have a place to end it. End it properly so that I at least know where I'm working towards. And yeah, I do move in some odd positions whenever I draw. I think everyone kinda does a bit of a strange way. Everyone has their way of doing things. Put a little line there so you can at least see that this is kind of like a thicker bit to his neck. Because naturally, since he's a superhero, he should probably have an impossibly large neck. Because they all do. And again, because he's turning his head, this part is a little bit thicker. Because that's what happens with people's necks. They kind of bulge out a little bit whenever they're turning. Now, this is going to be a bit tricky if I keep doing this in completely broken lines. Need to get a few properly done lines in there, and then kind of smooth them out. This is the kind of method I use sometimes, just to kind of fill it in and then smooth it out with the eraser. Again, it's all about not being afraid to get rid of things sometimes, because again, there are times whenever it's just kind of not working for you, And again, it's all about feeling happy with it. If you don't feel happy with it, it's not going to be great. You'd always strive to be happy with the final product. And I'm just going to have this bit of a cape kind of hanging over his shoulder. Yeah, like you even have it hang straight down, and that would make my life easier now, wouldn't it? Wouldn't have to draw any of his chest. But no, we'll leave in some of it, because you know we're not going to be that lazy. We could be. There's always a lot of laziness that you can truly achieve, and I am a very lazy person. Just throwing some kind of folding here and there, just so that you're getting the idea that this is a different material. It's a fabric. It's kind of creating these little lines as it's going along. And there you've got that kind of feeling going on with his cape. No, it might actually, yeah, we'll do it here where this side is hanging down, because that's the side we're not seeing, so it could kind of explain to us why we're not seeing it, because it's just kind of dangling down in front. He's let it fall down. Batman's, he's letting it ride, he's letting it rock. Just kind of letting it all flow. There, right, there's that gone. Now, so now we should try and kind of approximate the musculature. We'll just say, yeah, this is the middle of his chest, roughly. And yeah, that's kind of, yeah, that makes about much. That makes some sense. Just add a few more little bits of lining there around his face. Yeah, maybe not that much. Maybe not that much. Kind of get feel the need here now to kind of add something else going on there. Oh, we're going to be adding stubble later on, so we should probably kind of stray away from going too far with that. And yeah, now we've got to work on getting this bat symbol done. So right, so we should try and kind of keep things roughly in the middle. We're using the line in the middle of his chest to try and keep things symmetrical to a degree. Now, if I wanted to be really lazy, I could just copy and paste stuff. I could get in with the lasso tool and just start throwing stuff down. But we're not that lazy. We're not that lazy today. I'm adjusting my hair a lot here. So I tend to try and make the bat symbol. Yeah, I tend to try and make the bat symbol interesting to a degree. I don't usually want it to kind of spread too far, all that much. So it's I tend to do it kind of a bit thicker, a bit of a thicker one. Not quite the one that they have going on in the movies now, where it's real chunky. It's a real thick bat symbol. But this is going to be almost completely like pitch black, so we're really not going to see any kind of detailing on this. There's no point in really doing much going on. So what's our thing got here? So we've got to try and say this is about where his pecs end, and then he's got kind of broad shoulders, so we'll kind of bring down a line like that to show that he's got that there. This is the kind of curve of his shoulder you can see there with the blue, so that maybe wouldn't really show up here. It would kind of end there. So extra line here. But yeah, his arms are thick, so we wouldn't really be seeing them through this, because the cape is kind of covering the top of his shoulder. So we've really got our kind of details done now. We'll get into the shading, I guess. We'll get into our shading, which we'll use dots for. I quite enjoy doing the dots. It kind of speeds up the process a little bit. I always lower the opacity and just do them in black, 62%, and then I go in and find my dot brush. Then to make that's size 50, might need to actually make it, let's see, that's about right, that's a decent enough size. I was gonna say maybe it might need to be bigger, but it shouldn't need to be bigger. But yeah, I do enjoy the dot brush. It's very effective at getting kind of a variety of shades going on. The thing that I find a lot whenever I'm drawing actually is that getting attached to things, getting attached to little ideas or little elements that you've drawn is very easy. And it's actually probably one of the worst things you could do, because it'll limit what you want to do, which is the thing. You need to kind of motivate yourself in order to actually want to do certain parts. So it's a case of where, particularly in the shading phase, this is the point whenever it's very easy to kind of, this is whenever those kind of attachments get kind of a bit, they come to the forefront in a case of where you're like, oh no, I actually really liked this bit of detailing here, I don't want to cover that up with shading, and then you don't, and then it starts getting like, oh, where's the light coming from, how's the light affecting this, and it just starts looking weird whenever you start doing that. So for example, we're saying that our light is coming from some way off in to the right side, so therefore everything on the left side of Batman should be fairly dark. I'm maybe gone a bit too far on that there. We don't want it to be so dark because we're gonna want to at least see the color coming through this. But yeah, we don't want to go too hard on the darks, because we want to, we do want to see the colors coming through at the very least. But yeah, we want to kind of emphasize some things. because shading is really important. It really helps you kind of emphasize the shapes of things here. Like it emphasizes just how kind of harsh Batman's scowl is. Just how kind of deep and dark you get with these kind of bits of shading around here. But I don't want to go too far with the dots because we're also going to be doing a second layer of shading with this. We're going to be using, we're just going to kind of overlay some stuff on top of our colors. That shouldn't be too hard because we're going to be using pretty big brushes for our colors because yeah, Batman is 90% of the frame here, so this is the thing. And yeah, we'll just put a little bit of this here just to emphasize the kind of area under his chin, so let's just pop in a little bit more. Still not added our stubble. Need to remember to do that. Because boy oh boy will that be embarrassing if I've mentioned specifically to put in stubble and I didn't put it in. The thing that I really wanted to kind of do with this this drawing in particular, to be honest, was I wanted to make everything simple. I wanted a degree of simplicity because I have a habit of over detailing, and it's a bad habit because I don't remember who said it, but I've been told in the past that every line you add to somebody's face, their face in particular, it adds a year. So it's a case of where we want Batman to look kind of maybe about late 30s, 40s maybe, because that's usually the age that the actors that play Batman are, and that's also usually kind of how they portray him generally. He's a little bit older, a bit wiser. That's the idea at least. So he's maybe late 30s, early 40s, and that's the thing. You give him like these little lines here. You give him the lines at the side of his face because he's got a very chiseled kind of muscular face. So you want that to kind of come through, and then obviously the cleft in his chin, and then the anger lines. So it's a case of where you don't want to go too overboard, but you want to put a bit in. You want to put a bit in, and yeah, again, you want it to remain simple, or at least we do in this instance. We want it to remain simple. So it's a case of, well, we don't want to go too overboard on it. And again, this side of Batman is being lit by our off-screen light. So we're going to kind of throw in some shading and then rub out bits of it so that we can still kind of, we're getting the emphasis on these lines. But it's good to remember that Batman's suit is black, so any lighting is going to cause very intense shadows on it. And yeah, it's again, we're keeping it simple, so we're not going to go in too deep into lighting or anything like that. Lighting is just kind of something to be to try and be conscious of, I guess, because it does it does a lot to make things look more realistic, is to have the lighting be consistent, and have it work with what you're doing. I'm just going to kind of rapidly scribble in that, and then yeah, we've got our dot shading in. We're actually going to run back in and do this here because based on the way that his face is, that should be kind of shaded, because we're even gonna get some of the nose as well. Want the nose to be kind of shaded because of the way that his face is here. We're actually gonna rub out some of this, and let's get in like that. There you go. Doesn't make it look like he's got a bit of a whiskey nose, but that'll all come across more clearly whenever we're actually getting into the colouring. Oh yeah, the stubble that I have mentioned a billion times now and have still not done. Boy, would that have been embarrassing if I'd completely forgotten to do that. Anyways. We'll do it on a separate layer actually. And then we'll merge that layer with the detail layer afterwards. So we'll just kind of start. That's way too dark. Batman usually has the kind of the designer stubble look, so it kind of goes up like this, and then kind of adheres to his cheekbones from there. So we're going to do a little bit of a slight crosshatch to it, just so it kind of gets emphasized, maybe a little touch more. Because the thing with facial hair in real life, particularly like stubble and stuff like that, is that stubble kind of ages you in an odd way. And just facial hair in general ages you. But yeah, it's a case of where you do look a little older with stubble, which is often why in anything, whenever they're like, oh, this character is supposed to look disheveled or however, they give them a bit of stubble because they're not clean or anything like this. They're you know, rough and tumble hero or whatever the thing they say is. But yeah, we've got that there. It is kind of emphasizing the fact that he's got a bit of a weird long face. It does help though, I think. And so because we're using Photoshop, we can very easily just merge these layers, and that's part of my detail layer. Just helps to keep things organized, nice and organized. Alright, so now what is next? We're going to do a very small layer of buildings, I think. Very small layer of buildings. We're going to want to do something like this. Make a folder to keep things organized for our character, and then create another folder for PG, and then just buildings, do something like that, and then just kind of we don't want them to be kind of too tall because they'll look a bit strange. You know what, we'll actually do that after we've done the color. Do that after the color, because the color will kind of help inform us a little bit more, I think. So first things first, we're going to do our skin color. Color in his skin. So we'll make him a bit kind of somewhere there, like there. We make our brushes bigger so that we can cover more ground more quickly. Yeah, I do tend to give Batman a very kind of full complexion in that sense. Again, the skin is probably the quickest part on Batman because he's only really got his mouth showing. Next quickest one would probably be the grey. So we're gonna get our grey. We'll find out grey. The thing that I find that helps to kind of make it look a little bit, give it a little bit more pizzazz, maybe, I guess you'd say. I don't know if that's probably 100% not the right term to use in this instance. The thing that kind of helps to give it a bit more life, I guess, is skewing your greys. So what I mean by that is, in this instance, we're making our grey a little bit blue, just so that it kind of stands out a little bit more. Because you'll see with the way that I do my shading in a bit here, that it'll probably help to kind of contrast a bit more. I feel like maybe it's a little too blue though, maybe. You only want it to be skewed, so you can just do something like that. And then yeah, I could even do it being a little darker, I think. There you go. And so now comes the part where we're going to make our brushes even bigger. And now is the part where we're going to do black. And because Batman usually has, like in the past you see Batman has like kind of a blue batsuit, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a slightly kind of like a dark blue color. And we're making this one even bigger, yeah. But since this is in order on the side, this is the lowest brush on the order, it just goes under everything, technically. So we can just be very willy-nilly about it. So long as we're not going over any of the edges, we can just be very cavalier about the way we're throwing our brush around. However, the downside of having the brush be, or our blacks at least, be underneath all our other colours is that we do have to be vigilant about how our other colours are being affected, or how our other colours are kind of bleeding over into our area. You always want to kind of control that a little bit. You don't want it to go too much in there, for example. Particularly whenever it's a light colour going into the area of a dark colour, it's always very noticeable. If you don't kind of get a handle on it, it might kind of distract people from the actual drawing. Okay, we can kind of get back to what we were doing now. Okay. You know, to very briefly go back to what I was saying about bleeds, it's actually surprising how whenever a colour, I was saying earlier on about how whenever a light colour bleeds into the area of a dark colour, it's very noticeable. But whenever a dark colour bleeds into the area of a light colour, it's not quite as noticeable, so you don't really need to worry about it as much. I've even noticed it there a little bit whenever I was colouring in this area around here with the mouth. Bits of my black did kind of verge onto the personal space of the skin tone, so where you don't need to worry too much about that, and yeah, it's not all that noticeable whenever it happens, because again, since our lines are black, it's a case of where it's obviously those lines are kind of bleeding a bit all over the place because of the way I do lines. They're a bit messy. So yeah, just don't worry about it, that kind of thing. And there we've got our black laid in. We need to make sure we don't forget to colour in his eyes. What I'm going to do is with the eyes, I need to put them under everything so that I don't go over, as I said before, the personal space, I suppose, of any of my other colours. Let's color them there very quickly. Since they were white, you can't really see it, so it's a case of where if you turn off the background, you can very clearly tell. You can also very clearly see bits that I missed a little bit in the black. Not very much, thankfully. It's always just a wise idea to do that every now and then, to just kind of take a quick look and see what you missed. So, now we're going to get on to the shading. And the way that I do shading, if you watched the art stream, you'd have seen this, but if you've not, the way I do shading is like this. So we turn down, maybe we want our shading to come across a bit darker, so let's leave it at 50%. And so what we do is we make our brushes bigger first of all, and we just color over, and since we've created a clipping mask onto this, our color will stick to the areas that we go in. So yeah, we're just gonna kind of very haphazardly just start kind of going at it here. Oh yeah, something which I'll just kind of touch on very briefly here is that the black that I use isn't actually 100% black. What I do is I have it, I'll even show you, it's like a very, very dark red. So you can see, particularly whenever I'm shading, it's a case of where it comes across as that kind of very vivid red, or not even necessarily a vivid color, but it just comes across kind of more subtly. There we go, you kind of got that shading done now. So we're just gonna very, again, haphazardly color all this stuff over. And I know you might think, wouldn't it be easier to just color it like this? And to that I say, you do it your way and I do it mine. But yeah, now that we're at this point of where we're coloring down over our bluish grey, we're getting the emphasis of we're getting this contrast, is what I mean to say, of our reddish black against our bluish grey, and that's yeah, as I say, gives a lot of emphasis, and it does help to provide a lot of contrast. Alright, so we've got our dark shading done. So we've got very emphasized stuff here. I should even probably, I'm starting to feel like this area could do with a bit more. I'll just leave it like that. That part's good. So now we're going to want to put in our lights. Our light part of the shading. And yeah, I think that's our Batman done, which means we still got a bit of background to do. And yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to want to reset our brush size to be normal again, and we are just going to throw in a few buildings. But what we are going to do is we're going to get our eraser, and I don't know why I'm going through that. We need the watercolor brushes, because when we're going to be erasing like this, we're going to want a watercolor brush to kind of help smooth off some stuff. So we're also going to whack up the size of this. Or wait, no, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Hold on, I'm still on my my own brush. So, or my normal line brush. So we're just gonna kind of do this so we add a bit of texture to it. A bit of texture to buildings. Say there's like some smoke or something, because you know Gotham has tons of smoke. And then lower the opacity a touch so that they stand out from Batman. We've got our buildings done. And then another thing we're going to add is we are going to add a gradient. And so a gradient is always a good idea to add, because we want like an electric kind of a bright red. Maybe even not quite that red. You want to warm it up a little bit, that red, and get a kind of deep purple. And so we're going to want to put a gradient in the background, because the reason for that is it just kind of helps to to give it a bit more life. And since we have an odd shaped thing here, we got this going on. And so, there was a few other things I wanted to add. Because the devil is in the details, even though we said we were going to do it simple. You can put details on simple. So I did make a texture. Now, texture, you might think, what in the name of Jesus is he doing? Why is he adding a texture? And the reason for that is that it helps to disperse the colors. So we're going to place that. Actually no, we probably want to... I don't remember exactly how to do this. You'll need to bear with me for a minute. There, I managed to figure it out after a few minutes. So, with the texture, it just helps to kind of disperse the colors and it gives it a bit more life. I think you'll see in a minute here, I'll be applying a gradient map as well, and what gradient map does is it's basically like a filter. That's all it is really, in its simplest terms. It's just a filter. It just helps to kind of make the colours pop a little bit more. Maybe I'll sign it now. I've decided to do that. But yeah, there's one last detail we wanted to add into the background, and that is that symbol. I'll put the bat signal in the sky because, you know, why not? So what I'm going to do is I downloaded a PNG just to make my life easier, because I'm very lazy, as we've already discussed this. And I'm not so lazy as to just put that in the sky and have that be it, though. I am going to trace over it, just so that, again, there's nothing wrong with tracing every now and then. It does make your life a little easier whenever, as I said, you're lazy like me. So you can probably even see there, as I was filling that in, that the texture does a lot to kind of, texture does a lot to as I say, help disperse the colors. And so, yeah. However, since I did, draw the symbol and everything myself, even though it was, copied from, traced, I did actually have to draw it myself. So there's only so much help you can really give yourself. I'm going to put that in a separate layer. So what we'll do is we have our circle tool. Yeah, so I think we've got everything apart from the gradient map. I think that's the last thing we have to do now, is the gradient map. Looks to be. I really kicked myself if I forget. If it turns out that I did forget something else. Oh well. And then, so yeah, gradient map. So new adjustment layer, gradient map. We don't want that to affect this, so we shall have our darkest color. This is the thing with our gradient, is that it actually gives us a good place to work from in terms of memory. So we want this to be a very dark purple as our darkest part, and then as our lightest part we want it to be a very vibrant red. I just remembered a thing that I forgot to do. Thank God I remembered. And so now we're going to have maybe like a kind of a hot pink in the middle. Or something like that. Maybe even kind of limit that pink to maybe a bit more purpley. Or a purpley colour. Even maybe make it a bit darker. So yeah, we've kind of got our dispersal, and yeah, it's very intense currently, but we can set this to be overlays, we can set it to be soft light. Soft light is usually the nicest looking one. I think we're actually going to go with overlay because we want it to be very vivid, I think. I normally turn it down to about 60%. So how's that looking in soft light? Yeah, I think we're gonna stick to overlay because it's just a slight bit more vivid than what we got with the other one. So yeah, thankfully I did just this very second remembered what I'd forgotten to do, and that is the light line. Forgot to put in a light line. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna have our light line be kind of a reddish color. Hell, I might even make it, you know, a bit of a pinky red. So we're gonna zoom in. And then have Batman's kind of outline be done now. And I believe we're done. I think that's a pretty finished drawing right there. Well, that was it. That's the video. I don't really have an intro or an outro, I mean, decided on yet. But I guess if you like the video, whatever, do whatever. I don't really mind. It doesn't bother me. But yeah, thank you for watching, and hopefully I will see you next time. Assuming there's a next time. Assuming I remember to do another one of these.